And so another 2 game weeks have passed, and though my lords have emerged still in a strong position, it cannot be denied we have taken a bit of a battering. Indeed, right up until the 80th minute of the final game of Game Week 21, the momentum had swung so far in our favour that we were beginning to look beyond the League of Gentlemen entirely. And then from nowhere, things took a bit of a mad turn as the Saints gifted devilish Diallo a hat-trick from the heavens. Having captained Isaac when all of my rivals went Salah, I'd started plotting some attacking moves for Game Week 22. But all those plans went out the window with the realisation that my advantage was far more precarious than it had seemed just a few minutes earlier. However, I remained in a fantastic position entering Game Week 22 with my big balls call to captain a yellow flag player, seeing me rise up to 12,229 in the overall rankings. And though my lead at the apex of the world's greatest mini-league was 18 points fewer than it would have been had that game week ended 10 minutes earlier, it still stood at a massive 58 points. And yes, I permitted myself a moment of pride when that black box revealed the rankings of the game's elite, as the great and the good were all trailing the glorious gobshite. I've spent all season talking a big game, and there I was backing it all up. My master plan taking me clear of every single legend this game has ever seen. I'd called my shot, and I hit that bullseye dead centre, and whatever happens from here on out, that can never be taken away from me. And it does leave me wondering what might happen if the great and the good had the cojones to request entry to the League of Gentlemen. Whether we would all elevate ourselves to greater heights or we would all succumb to the greater scrutiny. But that's a question for another day, for the problem on my mind was how to handle Game Week 22. And look, I'm man enough to admit that I was shaken up by what transpired in Game Week 21's closing stages. Unlike Ahmed Diallo, I am not smooth on the inside and crunchy on the outside. My plans turned on a dime as my advantage melted away. Originally, I was going to roll my 3 free transfers and chance the hand I held against the aces in the rest of the pack. However, first Palmer was flagged, then Ismail Assar was flagged, and my master plan had to be reformulated. Instead of finding ways to press my advantage, I instead looked to limit the threat of my rivals, and I sold Sarr, Wisser and Softhand Sanchez to bring in a mad Matt Sells and Big Chris Wood. And maybe I should have gone Pickford over Sells with that double game week to come, or maybe even Henderson in his easier fixtures, or perhaps even kept Softhands for that Wolves game. But ultimately I was sick of the sight of Sanchez, and I was seduced by Forest's defensive record and that Southampton fixture. And then Sells conceded twice to the league's worst team, and now that move looks somewhat of a blunder. That's twice in 2 game weeks now I've been sabotaged by the Saints. And next week my Newcastle triple up travels to the South Coast. Oh, goody gumdrops. Maybe Brereton Diaz seeks retribution for his lifetime ban from my lords, and all he wanted for Christmas was a gypsy curse over my FPL team. That's how this last 2 game weeks has left me feeling, and I can only hope the greatest striker in all of world football ends that hoodoo next time out. And yes, the Ahmad transfer may look reactionary, and that's because it absolutely is. Sarr getting that yellow flag gave me the perfect excuse to negate a threat to my team, and I jumped all over it. You don't win leagues by leaving yourself wide open, and I'm not prepared to throw away this title race because of stubbornness.
I don't care how I look. It takes courage to look like a fool.
Amad Diallo hurt me big time, and though he will not repeat that 20-pointer anytime soon, he's got 5 goals and 6 assists in 11 game weeks, and that suggests he will be a constant threat for the remainder of the season. So I just lanced that boil immediately. Sometimes you have to pass it back to the keeper before you can build that next attack, and that's exactly what I did with that transfer. Likewise with Big Chris Wood. I know his form won't last forever, but I wasn't prepared to risk that Southampton fixture. Ahmad's hat-trick was unlikely, but Wood's 12-pointer was inevitable, and I wasn't prepared to gamble against it. And people said to me, I can't believe you kept Jackson over Wissa. Have you not seen Wissa's fixture run? And of course I have, but I had the master plan. Bringing Wood for Wissa this week, giving me a game against Southampton instead of Liverpool. Bang! 10 extra points, thank you very much. Now we have Wood and Isak as our constant strikers, and they aren't going anywhere. That third striker spot was an opportunity, and in a game week where I made safe, boring defensive transfers, this is where I took a bit of a gamble. Keeping Jackson over Wissa gave me a game against Wolves rather than Liverpool. And look, it didn't come off like I hoped it would, but it was worth a shot. I'm trying to win this blasted game, and to do so you have to take chances. And sometimes the outcomes go for you and sometimes they don't. But I still end the game week in the position every other manager in the League of Gentlemen wants to be in, and all I can do is hope to come back stronger next time out.
Keep striving, never give up, fall down 7 times, get up 8.
And I will need to do so because my rivals are starting to sense weakness and they are moving in for the kill. And though I won't give you a rundown of the entire division, I will highlight the following standout performances. The first is the continued resurgence of Grinchy Vogt, who seems to have taken to heart the recollection of his heroic comeback in the 2021 season, when he hit 740 points in just 9 game weeks to turn a 4 million overall ranking at Christmas into a 150k finish. And the Grinch is on a mission to show lightning can strike twice. He continues to move up through the rankings, a climb turbocharged by his 95 points in game week 21 after signing both Ahmad and Gordon for an immediate 22-point gain, and having the cojones to captain Isak when all around went for Salah. And though his presence in this tale has diminished in recent game weeks, he's not that far away from the top 10. He has all his chips to play, and we all know when the Grinch gets in the zone, he can carve through those rankings like Michelangelo through marble. Secondly, there is something important we need to talk about. You know how in this game they tell you not to take hits, that it's more strategic to avoid the penalties and keep them to a minimum. Well, it's time to tell you about a man known to the gentlemen as Maverick Mikey. You see, for years the Maverick played his own game. Barely a game week went by without a multiple transfer penalty, and yes, it has cost him over the years. However, this season he has benefited hugely from those new rolling transfer rules, and he found himself still in the top 10 after the last game week. And then after so many game weeks of discipline, he just couldn't help himself. He took a -12 and dropped several places before kick-off. And do you know what happened though? He sold 5 players that scored in total 16 points. He signed Rodgers, but that wasn't a big thing. He was just the enabler to sit on his bench. Can you guess who else the Maverick brought in? He signed Big Chris Wood for 12 points. He signed John-Philippe Mateta for 13 points. He signed Philip Walter Foden for 19 points. And in a story so wild, I've had to use a screenshot of his team to prove that it's true. He signed Justin Credible Clivert for 22 points. Don't take hits to say, well, for the Maverick that was 28 points lost, but 66 points gained. Don't ever let them even tell you hits will destroy your season, because sometimes they are the difference between mediocrity and magic. The only shame for the Maverick is that in a game week where so many of his team went big, he gave the armband to Isaac. And finally, there was another gentleman who took a huge gamble this past game week. And again, he went against the conventional wisdom and he reaped some huge rewards. And that man is Gladiator Glenn, who refuses to accept his fate and continues to compete in the Coliseum. In game week 22, he did something not one big name content creator recommended, taking the big balls call to play his free hit. And you might think that's madness, that we are approaching blank and double game week season and so these trips need to be saved. But let me tell you something, this is what his non-free hit team would have scored. And this is what his free hit team did score. And yes, while it could have gone better, just look at all those extra points that Foden captaincy delivered. And that's what the trips are for, to give us extra points we wouldn't otherwise have had. I mean, it was only last season when so many used their free hit in one of the worst game weeks in FPL history. Can any of us really be sure that our free hit will increase our score by the amount the Gladiators did for him? That's 3 trips the Gladiator has deployed in the wrong game weeks this season, and yet the Gladiator's out here kicking the asses of so many who play their game the right way. There's always another route to success in FPL, and don't you let anybody tell you otherwise.
And I refuse to live in fear, because that's not living at all. And I don't know about you watching at home, I feel alive, and I hope you feel alive.
And that's why I made the decision to sell Wissa when so many experts are looking to bring him in, because I have a plan, and I'll tell you it all here. In my last video, I told you all about the importance of identifying a dream signing for each game week well in advance. Now it's time to show you what I mean. In the game week just gone, I brought in Wood for Wissa, relegating Nico Jackson to my third choice striker. That meant in game week 22, my third choice striker played Wolves rather than Liverpool. This week I'm selling Jackson for Gakpo. That gives my third striker a game against Ipswich at home rather than Man City away. Next week I'm either rolling or given Gabriel plays City and Kirkes plays Liverpool, I might do O'Shea to Mikalenko for the double. I'll just see how I feel. In game week 25, I'm doing Gordon to Mbeumo, swapping out fixtures versus Man City, Forest and Liverpool for ones against West Ham, Leicester and Everton. In game week 26, that's when the wonderful Wissa returns, giving me Leicester and Everton instead of Man City and Newcastle. After that, it depends on who blanks in game week 29, so I'm not planning beyond game week 26 at this point. Maybe I'll be able to keep my free hit for later. Maybe I'll use it to retain the team I have. We'll just have to wait and see. And who knows, maybe I'll decide to play the ass man on slot in game week 24, and I'll bring in Mateta or Wissa instead of Gakpo. It always pays to have a backup plan in this game, but now you have my actual plan, and I'm killing it so far this season, so do with that information what you will. And you may think I've been thrown off course by the Gladiators gambit, that the weight of expectancy is giving me that sinking feeling, and that the pressure is crushing me like a billionaire diving to the Titanic. But my master plan is what will navigate these stormy seas as we sail towards our destiny. Sometimes you have to take one step back to take 3 steps forward, which is the pattern I've followed since that game week 10 wildcard. And so far those forward steps have led me to the gates of the promised land. The top 10k is tantalizingly within reach. And those defensive transfers last week have given us the platform with which to attack the game weeks to come. And that starts in game week 23. And whether you choose to mimic my moves or go against them is up to you. I really don't mind. For my League of Gentlemen rivals though, the cards being on the table presents an interesting dilemma. Now they have to make the decision of whether to play it safe and hope their differentials see them through, or whether to take me on and alter their own strategies. They have to weigh up whether now is the time to attack my lead, or whether it is better to limit their risk and hope to chip away my advantage. And with the Gladiator getting himself right back in the running with that masterful free hit, the twin-pronged attack of both him and the dragon keeps me right on my toes. There are 3 realistic ways to attack the upcoming double game week: with a second Liverpool attacker, with a second Liverpool defender, or with the Assman on a slot. I'm going for the attacker, which means my 2 rivals, they've got 2 alternative strategies to attack me with, or one to play it safe. It's a massive decision, one which could decide the ultimate fate of the League of Gentlemen trophy, and I can only hope my master plan delivers me the crown I covet the most. And so ahead of the game week that leads us into that decisive double, let me just say, may all your transfers be successes, may all your arrows be green, and may those FPL gods be in your favour. Fire a shot across the bow by hitting that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.
It's an FPL Nightmare, got me pulling out more, yeah. I'm the greatest football manager to ever grace the old armchair, but the FPL gods hate me, and no one seems to care that my points are only average, and my ranking is not fair.